The human colony of Eos 17 was quiet that day. It always was. It floated on the edge of known space, far from great empires and loud wars. Humans had built it slowly, piece by piece, with hope instead of fear. The streets were clean. Children played under artificial skies. Workers talked about tomorrow, not about survival. No one expected the sky to change. At first, the sensors showed nothing unusual. Trade ships passed as usual. Communication towers sent routine signals. Then, without warning, the stars above the colony dimmed. Not because of night, but because something massive blocked the light. The defense systems reacted too late. Gigantic warships appeared out of hyperspace, dark and sharp like blades. Their hulls carried the mark of the Galactic Coalition, a force that ruled dozens of species. They did not send a message. They did not ask questions. They did not demand surrender. They opened fire. Energy beams struck the outer shields of the colony. The shields held for seconds, only seconds, before collapsing. Explosions lit up the sky. Buildings shattered. Power grids failed. The peaceful hum of the colony turned into screams and alarms. Human civilians ran for shelters that were never meant for a full invasion. Families were separated in the chaos. Emergency crews tried to help, but they were not soldiers. They were farmers, engineers, teachers. They had believed distance would protect them. The coalition fleet moved with cold precision. One sector after another was destroyed. They targeted communications first, cutting Eos 17 off from the rest of humanity. Distress calls were sent, but most were jammed or destroyed before leaving the system. In the command center, the colony leaders watched their screens fill with red warnings. They tried to contact the attackers. They tried diplomacy. They tried surrender. There was no response. A coalition commander observed the destruction from orbit. To him, the colony was nothing more than a strategic problem being erased. Humans were considered minor players in the galaxy, too quiet, too slow, too divided to matter. The commander ordered the final strike. A massive blast hit the colony's central habitat ring. The structure cracked, then broke apart. Atmosphere escaped into space like a dying breath. Thousands of lives ended in a moment. By the time the firing stopped, Eos 17 was burning. Only wreckage remained. Twisted metal. Broken cities. Silent skies. The coalition fleet did not stay to clean up. They had made their point. To them, it was just another mission completed. As the last warship jumped away, a single automated probe drifted through the ruins. It was damaged, barely functioning. Its power was low. Its sensors were cracked. But it was still alive. The probe recorded everything. The attack. The ships. The destruction. With its final energy, it launched one last transmission, a weak, broken signal aimed toward the inner systems of human space. The signal traveled slowly, passing through empty regions where no one listened. Hours turned into days. Days turned into weeks. On Earth, long after the attack was over, a deep space listening station finally caught something strange. A fragment of data. A distorted image. A dying scream frozen in code. Analysts tried to clean the signal. What they saw made the room fall silent. A human colony had been erased. The report was sent upward. Then higher. Then to places that had not been opened in a very long time. On Earth, no announcements were made. No speeches were given. The public did not know yet. But deep beneath the planet's surface, ancient doors began to unlock. And for the first time in centuries, Earth started to listen, not with fear, but with memory. The day the colony burned was the day humanity stopped believing the galaxy would leave them alone. On Earth, the message arrived without sound. It did not appear on public screens or news feeds. It moved through secure channels, passed from system to system, until it reached the highest levels of command. Those who saw it did not speak for a long time. The recording from EOS 17 played again and again. Burning cities. Breaking habitats. Silent ships leaving behind death. Earth had lost colonies before. Accidents, pirates, small wars. But this was different. This was not chaos. This was a message written in fire. The leaders of Earth gathered, not in open halls, but in places buried deep under mountains and oceans. Faces were calm, but eyes were hard. No one asked who was responsible. The symbols on the enemy ships were clear. The Galactic Coalition. Some advisors expected anger. Others expected fear. Instead, Earth chose silence. No threats were sent. No protests were filed. No emergency calls went to the Galactic Council. To the outside galaxy, it looked like humans had accepted the loss. Like they were too weak to respond. Alien observers noticed this quickly. In distant systems, coalition analysts laughed at human restraint. They said Earth was divided, slow, and fragile. They believed the destruction of one colony had broken human confidence. They were wrong. On Earth, orders were moving quietly. Old networks activated. Long-forgotten facilities received power for the first time in centuries. Shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, inside moons, and beneath planetary crusts came alive. There were no public celebrations. No dramatic speeches. Only work. Factories shifted production without explanation. Civilian traffic lanes changed routes. Scientists were called back from retirement. Military officers received sealed files marked with symbols few remembered. Inside those files were plans. Not new plans, but ancient ones. They were written during humanity's darkest ages, when Earth had first reached the stars and learned how cruel the galaxy could be. Back then, humans had made a choice: never show their full strength unless survival demanded it. That time had come. Across Earth and its allied worlds, the same message appeared on secure screens. Do not speak. Do not warn. Prepare. Ship crews assembled without knowing the full mission. Engineers worked around the clock. Artificial intelligences calculated jump routes, fleet formations, and engagement scenarios far beyond defensive needs. This was not a rescue operation. This was not diplomacy. It was preparation for judgment. Deep space sensors began to wake up, watching regions the galaxy believed were empty. Massive energy signatures flickered on and off, carefully masked from foreign detection. To outside observers, it looked like nothing was happening. On the surface of Earth, life continued. People went to work. Children went to school. The skies were blue. The oceans were calm. The public did not yet know what had been lost, or what was being built in their name. Only a few monuments were quietly updated. One small colony name was added to a list carved in stone. EOS 17. Far beyond Earth, the Galactic Coalition moved on to other matters. They believed the human problem was solved. A warning had been sent. No response had come. That silence felt like victory. But silence can be dangerous. In the dark between stars, engines began to warm. Hulls larger than cities took shape. Weapon systems tested themselves in perfect order. Fleets that had never existed on any map aligned in formation. Earth did not roar. Earth did not threaten. Earth waited. The galaxy had a habit of forgetting humans. Not because humans were small, but because humans were quiet. They traded when it helped. They defended when they had to. They did not chase power the way other species did. They did not sit on the council and shout. They did not build statues of their victories. So when Earth went silent after EOS 17, most aliens saw it as proof. Proof that humans could be pushed. In a hidden command facility beneath Earth's oldest mountain range, a screen showed a map of space covered in tiny lights. Each light was a human asset. Outposts. Listening stations. Supply routes. And something else, something far larger. A fleet. Not one fleet. Many. A senior commander stood with hands behind his back. His face showed no anger, but his voice was steady, tight like steel. Begin Phase 1, he said. In deep space, far beyond the usual lanes, a dead region of rocks and dust suddenly moved. What looked like lifeless asteroids shifted positions, opening like doors. Inside them were ship docks, masked for centuries. Power rose through ancient cables. Lights came on. Air filled sealed halls. Then the first warship woke. It was long, dark, and scarred with layered armor. Its surface did not shine. It swallowed light. Its engines did not scream. They whispered, controlled and calm. One ship became 10. 10 became 100. In another system, a moon that was thought to be empty cracked open. Not from damage, but from design. A hidden shipyard unfolded like a machine flower. Huge frames slid outward into open space. Construction drones surged forward, finishing hulls that had been waiting for years, half-built, frozen in time. Across human space, the same thing happened. Places the galaxy ignored were never empty. Earth's leaders did not count the fleet in public numbers. They had not spoken the number in centuries. But in the command rooms, the total kept rising. 100,000. 200,000. 300,000. By the time the final production lines reached full output, the number became something that made even experienced officers swallow hard. 500,000 warships. Not all were the same. Some were fast cutters built for pursuit. Some were heavy carriers with wings of drones. Some were silent stealth ships that could vanish into background noise. And some were monsters. Ships so large they needed their own gravity stabilizers. Ships built not to fight a battle, but to end a war. A young officer stared at the fleet display, his mouth dry. How did the galaxy not see this? A veteran beside him answered without looking away. Because Earth wanted it that way. In the deepest hangar, the oldest ships were waking last. They carried names from Earth's history, names that had once been banned from open records. Their crews were not regular soldiers. They were trained for one purpose, to strike when the galaxy crossed the final line. That line had been crossed. The fleet did not move yet. It did not rush into open space. It waited in perfect formation, hidden behind blind zones and false sensor shadows. Every ship checked its systems. Every captain received the same sealed packet. Inside the packet was a single image. EOS 17 burning. And one sentence. Remember why. Across thousands of ships, commanders watched the same footage. Some closed their eyes for a moment. Some clenched their fists. Others stayed still, letting the pain turn into focus. This was not rage. This was decision. In the Galactic Coalition space, their scouts reported nothing. They celebrated a quiet border. They told their leaders the humans had learned their lesson. They moved fleets away, shifting resources to other threats. That mistake would cost them everything. On Earth, a final meeting took place. One voice asked the question everyone feared. Are we ready? The senior commander looked at the fleet display, 500,000 human warships waiting like a storm held back by a thin wall. Yes, he said. But we still won't warn them. A communications officer hesitated. No message at all. The commander's eyes stayed on the burning colony footage. They gave EOS 17 no warning, he said. Earth will return the same courtesy. Then he nodded once. Release the blackout. Let them see. In deep space, the human fleet powered up in full. Engines lit across the dark like a second sky. Signals that had been hidden now rose like waves. Across the galaxy, coalition sensors screamed. Screens flooded with impossible numbers. Officers thought it was an error. Then the main signal appeared, clean and clear, across every channel. "This is Earth," it said. "We are not asking." The first coalition sensor officer thought the system was broken. The numbers on the screen made no sense. Signals were stacking over each other, flooding every channel at once. He wiped his eyes and ran the scan again. The numbers grew larger. Across coalition space, alarms began to sound. Command centers filled with shouting voices. Fleet maps that had been calm for years suddenly lit up with red warnings. Something massive was moving through the dark. Too massive. Coalition admirals demanded answers. Analysts checked known human ship counts. The data did not match. Even if humans had built ships in secret, the numbers were impossible. No species could hide a force that large. Yet the sensors did not lie. 500,000 warships were advancing. Panic spread fast. Emergency meetings were called on the galactic capital world. Leaders from dozens of species gathered in fear. Some shouted that the humans were bluffing. Others demanded immediate surrender talks. No one agreed. The coalition had ruled through strength for centuries, and now that strength felt small. Human fleets crossed the first border without resistance. Coalition patrol ships tried to intercept. Their weapons powered up, but before orders could be given, the patrols vanished. Not destroyed slowly. Not fought evenly. They were erased in seconds by weapons that struck with perfect accuracy. No civilian targets were hit. No planets were touched. Only military assets disappeared. Coalition commanders began pulling fleets back to defend key systems. It did not help. Human ships did not charge forward blindly. They moved like a mind that could see everything. Supply lines were cut. Jump gates were disabled. Communication relays vanished one by one. Entire sectors went dark. In one heavily fortified system, the coalition believed they could finally stop the advance. Thousands of warships waited in formation. Defense platforms powered up. Generals spoke with confidence again. Then the humans arrived. They did not form a line. They did not announce themselves. They appeared across the system at once, surrounding the defenses from every direction. Space filled with controlled light as human weapons fired. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, the coalition fleet was gone. The human ships remained untouched. Footage of the defeat spread across the galaxy. Species that had once mocked humans fell silent. Old enemies suddenly remembered past treaties. Neutral worlds shut down their borders, afraid of being seen as hostile. The truth was clear. This was not chaos. This was not revenge without control. This was discipline. A coalition leader finally ordered a broadcast to Earth. The message was polite. Careful. Full of apologies and excuses. It spoke of misunderstandings and tragic mistakes. Earth did not reply. Instead, another coalition military base was destroyed. Fear turned into terror. On distant worlds, young officers asked why humans were so strong. Older ones answered quietly that humans had always been strong. They had just chosen not to show it. The Coalition Council voted to surrender, but the vote came too late. Human fleets had already reached the heart of Coalition space. Their presence alone crushed resistance. Warships powered down rather than face them. Finally, Earth spoke again. Not with threats. With facts. A single message played on every surviving Coalition channel. It showed the destruction of EOS 17. It showed the burning cities. It showed the silence after. Then a calm human voice followed. You destroyed a human colony, it said. This is the cost. The message ended. The galaxy understood. For the first time in its long history, the coalition was not in control. And as human fleets held position around their worlds, one truth settled into every mind watching the stars. Humanity was not seeking permission. Humanity was enforcing a boundary. The surrender signal from the Galactic Coalition was sent on every channel they had left. It was repeated again and again, translated into dozens of languages, amplified so no human ship could miss it. The message was simple. They admitted defeat. Coalition fleets powered down their weapons. Defense platforms shut off their shields. Military commanders waited in silence, unsure if the humans would listen, or if the end was already decided. The human fleets did not fire. 500,000 warships held position across coalition space. They did not move closer. They did not retreat. They simply waited, like a wall that could not be passed. On Earth, the final decision was made. Human leaders did not celebrate. No one smiled. The cost had been too high for joy. The image of EOS 17 still played in their minds, homes breaking apart, families lost, a colony erased without mercy. A single human envoy ship moved forward. It was small compared to the fleets behind it, but it carried the authority of Earth. The message it broadcast was short. Listen carefully. We will say this once. Across coalition worlds, leaders watched in fear. You attacked a human colony, the voice continued. You gave no warning. You offered no mercy. You believed distance would protect you from consequence. The envoy paused. You were wrong. The terms were not complex. The coalition would dismantle its expansion fleets. Borders would be redrawn. Human space would be marked and protected by law, not threat. Any attack on a human world, anywhere, would be treated as an attack on Earth itself. Most importantly, the coalition would rebuild EOS 17. Not as a symbol. Not as a favor. As a debt. Human engineers would oversee the reconstruction. Human families would decide if they wished to return. The coalition would provide resources, labor, and protection, without question. There was no negotiation. The coalition accepted. One by one, coalition warships stood down. Human fleets slowly pulled back, never turning their backs, never lowering readiness until the last threat was gone. The galaxy watched in silence. In the months that followed, something changed. Trade routes adjusted around human space. Old records were reviewed. Stories that had once been ignored were remembered. Species began to speak of humanity in a new way, not as quiet traders, not as minor players, but as something else. Patient. Human fleets returned to the shadows from which they had come. Shipyards powered down. Hidden bases closed their doors again. To an untrained eye, it looked like humanity had vanished back into weakness. But the galaxy knew better now. On the rebuilt world of EOS 17, a memorial was placed at the center of the new colony. It did not show weapons or ships. It showed ordinary people, workers, children, families, standing together. Below it, a single line was carved in stone. We were peaceful. Not defenseless. Far away, on Earth, the deep space listening stations continued their quiet watch. Ancient systems remained awake. Old plans stayed unlocked. Humanity returned to silence. But it was no longer the silence of being ignored. It was the silence of a power that had been revealed once, and would never need to prove itself again. And across the galaxy, every rising empire learned the same lesson. You can destroy a human world. But Earth will answer. With all of them.